They called me the helper at her party. I smiled like I always did. Like a fool. It wasn't even noon when I arrived, lugging two massive bags of ice in each arm. The air in suburban New Jersey still clung to the last breath of summer, though the leaves had already begun curling at the edges, brown veins creeping into what once was green. Chloe's engagement party, her perfect pre-wedding send-off, was set in the Blake family backyard, my childhood home, her kingdom. "I don't want attention," I used to say. "I just want peace." That was my motto, my shield. Words I fed myself like cough syrup, bitter and falsely soothing. The backyard bustled with white folding chairs, rented floral centerpieces, an overpriced catering truck backing in beside the garage. Everything gleamed except me. Mason Chloe's voice rang like the clink of crystal, sharp and cold. She didn't even look up from her phone. "Don't forget the trash bags," helper laughter followed. From her fiancé, from two aunts, even from our old neighbor, Mrs. Kent. It rippled through the garden like I'd told a joke instead of being the punchline. I nodded and smiled. Automatic, robotic. Inside, Vivian was arranging hors d'oeuvres like she was headlining a Food Network special. Her hair was sprayed into battle formation. She didn't greet me, just glanced at the sweat on my neck. "Can you be a dear and take those garbage bags out first before guests arrive? You're a bit damp." I did as told. Of course I did. Then came more. Move the coolers, adjust the lawn umbrellas, fix the speaker cables. I worked while Chloe took selfies in 3 separate outfits. By the time guests overflowed onto the lawn, I was invisible. No one asked me if I was dating working happy. I wasn't interesting. I was useful. Later, I passed the drinks table and heard Chloe. Her voice was coated in champagne. "Oh, everything today, I paid for it all," she announced to a group of distant cousins, tossing her hair like royalty. "Mom just helped me coordinate. But the money? That was me." I froze mid-step. It wasn't true. I remembered the transfers, the automatic deductions, the way our mother had called months ago saying Chloe's business launch needed a little help. "It's temporary. She'll pay it back." I never questioned, never even hesitated. That's who I was. That's who I had been trained to be. "You all right?" Noah's voice was low, careful. He stood beside me, a plate of untouched canapés in hand. "Didn't this come out of your account?" he asked, eyes scanning mine. Not accusing, just seeing. I shrugged. A practiced shrug. The kind that says, "It doesn't matter, even when it does." When it came time for the group photo, I was holding a plastic tub of empty wine glasses. "Wait, not you," Vivian said, waving a hand like she was shooing a cat. "You're sweaty. It's for family." I stood just beyond the photographer's lens, grinning like an idiot, balancing glassware while the flashes went off. The picture would hang in our hallway for years, and I wouldn't be in it. As the sky turned gold and the last of the guests laughed under string lights, I placed the final trash bag by the curb. No one noticed. No one thanked me. I started walking toward my car. My shoes crunched over brittle leaves. I didn't look back. "That's the last time," I whispered. And this time, I wasn't lying. They used my name to secure a loan. I was the guarantor and the ghost. The fluorescent ceiling light in my apartment buzzed faintly, casting a cold surgical glow over the mess of papers spread across my tiny kitchen table. The hum of the refrigerator blended with the muted throb in my temple as I stared at the open Excel spreadsheet. Line after line of transactions blinked back at me. Numbers, codes, charges. Each one a breadcrumb of someone else's feast. Under recurring withdrawals, 2 entries kept showing up. One marked event planning, the other housing grant. Both were dated monthly for the last 18 months, and both were pulled from a joint account I hadn't touched in years because I thought it had been closed. But it was still open, active, bleeding. Chloe's name appeared in the metadata of every transfer. Not hidden, not masked, Just casual. Like she assumed I'd never check. Like I'd never mind. I clicked over to the login portal of Liberty First Bank and dialed the number listed at the bottom of the screen. Thank you for calling Liberty First. This call may be monitored or recorded. The robotic voice droned on before transferring me to a generic voicemail box. Then another. Finally, a message. This is Mr. Garrison from the lending department. I can confirm that Mason Blake personally co-signed a home business loan associated with Chloe Blake's event planning startup. The guarantor responsibility was agreed upon in the contract dated. I ended the call. My hand hovered over the mouse, trembling slightly. Chloe's smiling face stared back at me from her profile picture in my phone. She'd sent a photo earlier that afternoon, her new office desk with flowers and a bottle of champagne. Captioned, "First big client booked." I remembered a winter night 5 years ago. She was curled up on my old futon blanket around her shoulders, hot chocolate in one hand. "Mason, can I use your name for something?" she'd asked sweetly. "Just for formality. You've got the stable credit score. I promise it's nothing serious. Just a grant application." Technically, I hadn't asked questions, because back then Chloe's voice could walk through my common sense like wind through tissue. My phone lit up. "Vivian." I let it ring twice before I picked up. "Are you seriously making drama out of this?" She began no greeting. "Drama," I said. "You know how startups work. Chloe's doing something meaningful finally. Don't be petty over paperwork. I'm legally tied to her company's debt." Vivian huffed. "Your family. Family means we support each other." I didn't reply. The call ended with a curt, "Don't ruin this for her." The silence afterward was louder than her voice had been. I turned back to the spreadsheet. The cursor blinked in a cell I couldn't fill. Then I opened my phone again, pulled up Chloe's contact. My thumb hovered over the delete button. One press and she'd be gone from my screen. From quick access. I tapped it. Contact deleted. A breath escaped my chest short tight. But then, I hesitated. My thumb moved again. I restored her. Not yet. I wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. I grabbed my old journal from the top drawer. Pages' yellowed spine cracked. The last entry had been a New Year's resolution I never followed through on. I turned to a fresh page and wrote just one sentence. No more discounts on my silence. It wasn't the money. It was the moment they pushed me out of my own story. The backyard shimmered with fairy lights strung from every tree and fence post. Lanterns flickered above white linen-covered tables. Soft jazz floated through the late afternoon air. People I barely recognized walked by in dresses that sparkled and suits pressed to perfection. They were Chloe's people. This was Chloe's show. I walked in through the back gate, balancing the last 2 boxes of wine on my forearms and a paper bag of LED lights clenched between my teeth. My khakis were speckled with dust. My shirt clung to my back with sweat. "Excuse me coming through," I muttered, maneuvering past a cluster of women laughing near the champagne bar. Someone handed me a napkin. "You really do everything for her, don't you?" a tall brunette said, amused. "I thought Chloe hired a staff. Guess you're it." I gave a tight smile. It didn't reach my eyes. By the patio, Chloe posed in a white jumpsuit trimmed with pearls, glowing with confidence. Her fiancé hovered beside her like a forgotten accessory. Cameras clicked around them. Guests sipped and smiled. Mason Chloe chirped, waving one manicured hand. "Put those by the beverage station, okay? And wipe the labels they're smudged." I nodded and turned, hoping to disappear before more eyes landed on me. I hadn't come for the applause, but I hadn't come for this either. Vivian found me by the back fence. She looked me up and down, lips pressed tight. "Listen, we're short on catering. Don't eat here, all right? Grab something on your way home." I stared at her. I wasn't planning to. "Good." She smoothed the front of her blazer, already turning away. "And clean your shoes before walking on the porch. Mud everywhere." Noah emerged from the sidearms crossed. Aunt Vivian. Not now, she snapped, brushing past him. Noah's eyes met mine, uncertain. You okay? Yeah, I lied. Just finishing up. I retreated to the shed, tucked the boxes away, and washed my hands at the outdoor sink. A part of me wanted to vanish. Another part, it stirred. Quietly. Like a wire tightening. Half an hour later, Chloe raised a glass. The crowd hushed. I just want to say she began this party as more than a celebration. It's a milestone. For me. For us. She gestured toward her fiancé. He beamed out of sync. And none of this would be possible without my team. My amazing crew who pulled it all together on a tight budget. But most importantly, she paused, eyes gleaming as she looked at me. My big brother. My forever helper. She motioned toward me with dramatic flair. Mason, come up here? I didn't move. She laughed. He's shy. Don't be shy. Someone pulled me forward. The crowd clapped. Chloe reached behind the bar, then handed me something wrapped in pink tissue. A broom. A pink broom. For your services, she said, grinning as the cameras flashed. The crowd erupted in laughter. Someone whistled. Someone said, speech helper. I looked at Chloe, who was already turning back to the mic. I looked at the broom. Then I looked at Vivian, sipping her wine like nothing had happened. I placed the broom gently on the table and walked off the stage. The laughter dulled behind me as I crossed the yard through the gate into the dark. But I didn't go home. I drove past my apartment, past downtown, past the corner deli where I usually stopped for cheap takeout. Instead, I pulled into a quiet neighborhood 20 minutes away. The house sat on a cul-de-sac, its porch light flickering for sale sign, leaning slightly to one side. I stepped out of the car. The night air was cool. I stared at the front door and whispered to myself, This is where I start writing my part of the story. It smelled like mold dust and old regrets. I felt strangely at peace. The floor creaked beneath my shoes as I stepped into the hallway. Dim light spilled in from a shattered window, slicing through the dust like judgment. A spider's web caught the breeze, fluttering near the corner where the crown molding had collapsed. It should have been disgusting. It should have sent me running. But instead, I exhaled slowly, feeling something I hadn't felt in years: ownership. I left the door half open and let the silence stretch. I'm not going home. My fingers ran along the chipped banister, tracing years of peeling paint. Each flake that fell reminded me of something I'd given up. The money, the time, the voice. I wasn't here to take anything back. I was here to claim something that had never been given. Mr. Edwards, the family lawyer, arrived exactly 3 minutes late, his habit. He shuffled up the crooked porch steps with a stack of papers pressed tightly to his chest like they might fly away in the wind. I brought the original deed and the addendum from your grandfather's will, he said, nodding toward the interior. You sure this is where you want to set up roots? No, I said. I'm sure it's where I want to rebuild. He didn't argue. He never did with clients who used to be invisible. At the kitchen table, really a plank of wood atop 2 paint cans, we went over the documents. The house had officially been in my name for 2 years. Grandpa left it to me quietly, bypassing the expected channels, never trusting Vivian to respect it. And I had been too preoccupied being helpful to notice I owned something. We walked the property together. The tiles in the hallway were cracked. The ceiling in the main room had caved, exposing skeletal beams. A raccoon had left evidence of his reign in the old fireplace. I didn't flinch. When Mr. Edwards left, I lingered in the backyard, letting the cold chew at my skin. I slipped off my shoes and stepped barefoot into the brittle grass, dry leaves crunching softly. Here was where my grandfather had taught me to build birdhouses, where he'd whispered, always make room for your own corner of the world. I hadn't known what that meant. Until now. A silver SUV crunched into the dirt driveway. Allison stepped out in boots and a jacket far too nice for this mess. She carried a tablet and the kind of calm that came from taming chaos before breakfast. "You weren't kidding," she said, glancing around. "This place is a cathedral of rot." "I don't need perfect," I said. "Just possible." She chuckled, opened the tablet. "Let's talk options." Inside, she pointed out load-bearing walls, potential kitchen expansion, structural hazards. I listened, absorbing. Then she turned the screen toward me, a rough layout forming. "This is your base plan," she said. "If you want to scale up." Here I interrupted gently, pointing to the front porch. "I want a bench. Sturdy. Weatherproof. With my name etched into the side." She raised an eyebrow. "Seriously?" I nodded. "No more shadows. I need to see myself in this." The sun was starting to dip. The air grew sharper. Allison packed up and left with a promise to send renderings. I stayed. Night moved in with heavy footsteps. I stood in the living room, broken glass glittering like fallen stars around me. For once, the silence wasn't suffocating, it was sacred. Let them laugh. I'm done building for them. I opened a ghost account and found a ghost using my name. The public library near Edison Station had terrible lighting, cold blue-tinted bulbs that made even the newest books look like relics. I found a corner behind the nonfiction stacks, a table scratched with initials and gum hardened underneath like fossilized secrets. I liked it here. It felt forgotten. Like me. My laptop booted up slowly. I connected to the free Wi-Fi, tapped a few keys, and waited for the past to load. The email address was one I hadn't touched in years. It was originally created for Chloe's business proposal. She'd insisted I use a separate account when helping her register her LLC. Just in case of legal stuff, she'd said, dismissing it with a laugh. At the time, I thought she was being cautious. Now I understood. The inbox was flooded with junk. But near the top was an unread message from 2 years ago. Subject line: grant confirmation. Urban Small Business Initiative. The sender: a government agency. I opened it. There it was, clear as day. Dear M. Blake, congratulations. Your application for the home-based female-owned business grant has been approved. Attached was the original application PDF. I clicked. Page 3, line 6, project lead, Mason Blake, and under financial contact, my name again. My number. My social security number. My old address. But it wasn't my signature at the bottom. It was hers. Chloe's looped and bold where mine would have been a quiet scrawl. I leaned back, eyes fixed on the screen, heartbeat threading tightly in my throat. I navigated to the grant's official site, pulled up the public listings. Blake Event Designs, $24,000 approved. Cross-checking my bank statements, I scrolled back month by month. Nothing. Not a cent. No deposits. No trace. No acknowledgement. I clicked open a secure cloud folder and created a new encrypted directory. Proof. Do not delete. Into it, I dragged the PDF, the grant approval, a screenshot of the email, a clip of my bank history showing no income during that month. Each document was another brick in the wall I was finally building, not to protect them, but to shield myself. I took a shaky breath and checked the encryption level twice. Then I added a password no one would guess: my grandfather's military ID. A soft voice broke my focus. "You okay?" Allison stood nearby, holding a book in one hand, a takeout cup in the other. She wore a sweatshirt this time, her hair pulled back, less polished than usual. It made her seem real, grounded. I blinked hard. Not yet. She didn't press. She just nodded and sat quietly across from me. I turned back to the screen. My mouse hovered over a folder labeled MISC. Archive, old family stuff. I hadn't opened it in years, but something nudged me now. A hunch. A flicker. Click. The folder opened. Dozens of subfolders scanned: tax files, family vacation itineraries, utility bills. and then one named, "They Thought I Forgot." My heart paused. It wasn't a name I remembered creating, but it was in my email, dated back nearly 6 years. Inside were 3 files, 2 PDFs, one .mp3 file, unopened. No description. Just a string of numbers for a file name, maybe a date. I didn't click it. Not yet. I stared at the name of the folder again. They Thought I Forgot. She used my name, my credit, my history, and called me petty when I noticed. The sun wasn't even up yet when I arrived at Allison's office. She was already there. Lights on jacket tossed over a chair, hands wrapped around a thermos that smelled like ginger and steel-cut discipline. I liked that about her. She never asked why I needed the space. Just opened the door, handed me Wi-Fi access, and made room. My laptop glowed in the early gray. My fingers were steady now. I typed slowly into the grant portal's contact form, requesting documentation on a dispersed urban small business initiative grant awarded under the name Mason Blake. Under relationship to grant, I wrote project lead. An automated reply arrived instantly. A real one followed an hour later. "Dear Mr. Blake," it read. "As per your request, please find attached the award confirmation and disbursement details for the 2022 grant cycle. Total $24,000. Disbursed via ACH to account ending in 7134. I opened the PDF, scanned. The name mine. The project Chloe's. Routing number 7134. I opened a tab to cross-check Chloe's business filings. The number matched. Not a shared account. Not a business account I had access to. Just hers. I sat back in the chair, listening to my own breath press against the walls of my ribs. She'd called me petty. The sound of the printer broke the silence. Allison had been watching from the corner eyes, scanning over her mug. She handed me the printout. Her voice was calm but edged. "This isn't petty. This is theft." I nodded, folding the paper into thirds like it was just another letter. But something inside me was standing now, tall, upright, with both feet planted. A buzz pulled my eyes down. My phone lit up. "Vivian, don't dig into old things. Chloe worked hard for this. Be a brother, not a problem." A brother. I tapped the screen once to archive the message, then dragged the PDF into my encrypted folder. Phase 1 Foundation. Each new name for these files gave me more spine than the last. I wasn't just collecting evidence, I was building a case. The cursor hovered over the last untouched item. Voicemail.mp3. I clicked. The file loaded slowly, then crackling through the speakers. "Just submitted under his name. He won't even know. That's the point. He's harmless." It was Chloe's voice, confident, sharp, casual. My jaw locked. Not out of surprise, but out of recognition. They didn't fear me because I'd never been anything more than useful. I didn't scream. I posted one photo. It was early, just after 6 a.m. The house smelled like primer and wet wood. Morning light pushed through the uncurtained windows, casting long bars across the unfinished floor. I stood barefoot in the kitchen, staring at the phone in my hand. The screen was bright. The rest of the world was quiet. I'd found the receipt last night. A faded thermal slip curled at the edges from the first catering company Chloe had used. Dated 3 years ago. Paid with my old credit card. The total $3,168.27. I remembered the conversation exactly. "I'll Venmo you later," she'd said, already walking away. She never did. Now I took a photo of it on the kitchen counter. The granite had a new sheen. Allison had helped me seal it last week. Funny how something real, something mine, made the past feel more visible. Caption: "Some debts are invisible. Doesn't mean they're not there." No names, no rage, no explanation. I hit post and waited. For a while, nothing happened. I poured coffee, walked through the front hall, touching the sanded banister. I opened windows. Let the air settle. Then the notifications began. A few likes, A few comments from people I hadn't heard from in years. Then the DMs. Is something going on with Chloe? That was pointed. You okay, Mason? Do you need to talk? I didn't answer any of them. The fourth message came from Chloe herself under the post "not private." Is this about the party? Wow. Short. Dismissive. But she saw it. That was enough. I was leaning against the kitchen counter when another ping hit Noah. Private message. You're not wrong. Just be ready. I stared at the screen a long time. Noah didn't take sides unless the ground was already shaking. Then something strange happened. Vivian, of all people, reacted. A thumbs up emoji. Then, 5 seconds later, unsent. Cowardice in miniature. I closed the app. I didn't need to win the internet today. I just needed to rattle the frame, and it worked. That evening, I checked Chloe's profile out of habit. She'd blocked me. Publicly. Then came her story, a blurry photo of a sunset followed by white text on black background. Some people crave attention more than peace. It's sad, really. No mention of me. But she didn't have to. Our relatives knew. The ones who whispered behind folded napkins and sipped tea too slowly would read between every word. And Chloe knew that too. It wasn't rage I felt. It was confirmation. The machine was reacting, and that meant it was afraid. I returned to my laptop. The folder was waiting encrypted and quiet. I right-clicked the name, Phase 1 Foundation. You can build without announcing it. That's how you avoid sabotage. The cold was different out here. Not the artificial cold of air conditioning or forgotten fridges, but honest autumn cold. Wind that slid under shirts and curled around bones. The kind of cold you notice in your teeth. I wiped a sleeve across my brow, which did nothing. The sweat just smeared with dust. My jeans were stiff with dried paint and my hands looked like I'd fought a dozen rusted nails and lost. But I liked the sting. Pain meant progress. Bruises meant permanence. The walls were up to my waist now. Wooden ribs of a home slowly standing upright. A form that hadn't been there yesterday or the day before. I could already imagine the kitchen where the coffee would sit, how the early light would fall across the floors, and more importantly, who wouldn't be inside it. You're bleeding, Allison said from behind me. I looked down. A gash ran along the inside of my palm, shallow but red. The wood beam I'd lifted had left more than a splinter. I hadn't even noticed. Gloves exist for a reason, she added. I know. She stepped beside me, boots crunching over old plaster and nail heads. You don't have to punish yourself to make progress. This isn't punishment. Then what is it? I took a long breath, exhaled slowly. Proof. She didn't push further. We stood side by side, watching as the crew maneuvered another beam into place. The thunk of wood hitting wood echoed louder than it should have. The wind caught a sheet of insulation paper and slapped it against the frame like applause. My phone buzzed. I wiped my fingers on my pants before pulling it out. Noah had sent a screenshot. One of Chloe's old stories from her business account filtered to perfection, wine glass in hand, sparkling backdrop behind her. Thanks to my big bro for the funds, wouldn't have made it without you. 2 heart emojis. 1 champagne bottle. And below that, her new status from this morning. Some people wasting money on empty projects. Sad. The passive aggression wasn't even subtle anymore. She wanted people to draw the line between those 2 posts and erase the first one. I saved both screenshots, dragged them into a folder on my phone. Phase 2. Reconstruction. Allison glanced over my shoulder. She's baiting you. She can try. She'll say you're bitter. Unstable. She already has. The next hour passed in hammer swings and electric drills. I wasn't good at construction, not yet, but I was steady. Focused. The foreman didn't ask questions, he just passed me more screws and barked out measurements. That was what I liked. No past. No parties. No Chloe. Just inches and angles and the sound of something becoming real. It wasn't until after lunch that the beige car pulled up. I recognized it immediately. The kind of car old family friends drove, modest but clean, a Sunday school sedan. Out stepped a man in his 60s with a clipboard and a forced smile. The type of man who made house calls with warnings disguised as concern. He didn't enter the construction zone, just stood near the open gate and waited. I walked over, keeping my gloves on. "Vivian asked me to check in," he said. "She's worried about you." "Is that so?" "Said you've been emotionally volatile, fixated on things that don't matter anymore." I said nothing. Let the air stretch thin. "She's just trying to look out for you." He added a half step too quick. "She ever mention what this house used to be?" He hesitated. "A family place. I think it wasn't hers. It was my grandfather's. Left to me." Quietly. He nodded, pretending to understand. "Still, this seems like a lot. A project. Maybe a little much, considering everything." I tilted my head. "Considering what?" Well, he looked uncomfortable now. "Just be sure you're not building for the wrong reasons." That was it. I wiped dust off my shirt, took one slow step closer, and looked him directly in the eye. "Come back in a month," I said quietly. He blinked. "Let the house speak for me." She came for my mind. I came for her memory. It was a Sunday. Quiet, unassuming, the kind of day built for small errands and long coffee. The house smelled like sawdust and wet leaves. My knuckles were bruised from the previous day's work, and the wind outside had a taste of winter in it. But inside the digital world, fires were already being lit. I saw Chloe's post an hour after she uploaded it. Some people rewrite history to feel important. No names, no tags. But the subtext was bolded by implication. It had a few likes, a couple of laughing emojis, and one "ugh facts" comment that felt like poison dressed in glitter. I didn't respond right away. I never did. That was her game bait, the reaction control, the framing. Then Vivian entered. A new post. Not hers, of course. She'd shared a health blog article titled "The Quiet Crisis: Mental Health in Young Men," and she'd tagged me. No caption, just a tag. And the article's thumbnail, a grayscale photo of a man with his face in his hands. I stared at it for a full minute. Not rage, not sadness. Just that slow sinking tightness behind the eyes, the feeling of being slowly erased truth by truth, inch by inch, until the world only saw what they projected onto you. I opened my encrypted folder, dragged one file out. It was the PDF from the community grant office, the one with Chloe's name, routing number, and my co-signature. Official letterhead. Clear wording. I took a screenshot of the final approval section. No edits, no captions, just a clean image of what was. I posted it. Silence followed. Heavy digital silence, the kind that sucked all oxygen from the thread. 10 minutes later, the tag from Vivian disappeared. Then her entire post. Then I was blocked by Chloe on both her main and business accounts. A cousin DM'd me. "What is going on? Is that real?" I didn't answer. The truth didn't need commentary. It only needed clarity. Noah texted next. He didn't ask questions, just sent a photo he'd saved from 2019, a physical printout from Chloe's event. Banner at the bottom, lead sponsor M. Blake. Same font. Same bold print. It had been public all along. No one paid attention until I made them look. I spent the rest of the afternoon in quiet construction. Not physical this time, digital. I opened a fresh PDF document, dragged in screenshots, email confirmations, deposit gaps, and grant metadata. Layered the file with bookmarks, named each section by date. At the top, in bold, "For anyone who wants the full story." I uploaded it to a public drive. Anonymous link. No passwords, no gatekeeping. Just light poured directly onto mold. I didn't post it anywhere just yet. But someone had already seen the earlier screenshot. Maybe from a shared group, maybe forwarded by a cousin. Because minutes later, a comment appeared under my post. Following this, "This is going to explode." She said I was broken. So I built something better. The rain made the wood smell clean, like the past being washed off. My house, still skeletal in parts, finally had windows. Not fancy ones. Just glass panes sealed tight enough to keep the weather out and the clarity in. I was reviewing the final index of the PDF when I heard the knock. 3 taps. Hesitant like guilt with a coat on. I opened the door. Vivian stood there, umbrella-dripping lipstick faintly smudged. She didn't step in until I moved aside. When she did, her eyes darted at the unfinished walls, the exposed beams, the light fixtures that hadn't arrived. "You've made this personal?" she said, as if the words hurt her more than they did me. I said nothing. Let the room stay silent. Vivian placed her umbrella by the door, glanced at a corner where I'd stacked documents. She lingered like she expected tea or a hug or a time machine. "All I ever wanted was peace, Mason," she began. This crusade you're on. It's not who you are." I studied her face. For a second I imagined it as it looked when I was 6, and feverish, waiting on the couch, while she handed Chloe the last bottle of orange juice. I walked to the counter and picked up my phone. Tapped once, played the voicemail aloud. "Just submit it under his name. He won't even know." Chloe's voice. Crisp. Casual. Like she was talking about an Uber receipt. Vivian's face didn't fall. It hardened. "That's out of context," she said. "No," I replied. "It's exactly the context you always hoped I'd never find." Her hands fidgeted with the strap of her purse. "Do you know what you're doing, Mason? You're tearing this family apart." I looked around. My house stood upright. The walls I built were holding. The past I'd carried here had weight, but it no longer dictated the shape of my spine. Then Chloe called. The screen lit up. I put it on speaker. Her voice burst out before I said anything. "You think this little document will scare me? I could ruin you, Mason." I walked to the window, watched the rain trail down the glass in uneven lines. "You already did," I said quietly. "I'm just rebuilding." Vivian didn't look at me. She stared at the phone as if waiting for Chloe to fix it, to clean the mess with charisma or tears. But the line stayed silent. For the first time, Chloe had no spin ready. I turned off the speaker, took a breath. "You'll get your silence back," I told them both. "When the truth is louder." I opened my laptop. The cursor blinked like a heartbeat. I clicked, send all. Emails flew to the local press, to the family thread, to the grant board, to the sponsors whose logos had been stapled next to my name without my consent. He hit send all on the PDF. Media relatives, grant board sponsors. I didn't need a crowd, but the truth did. The phone screen glared like an interrogation lamp when I opened my eyes. 173 unread messages. The world had gotten noisy overnight. I sat up still in yesterday's hoodie, my breath fogging slightly in the room. I hadn't fixed the central heating yet. But I didn't mind the cold anymore. The first email came from a grant board address I didn't recognize. Subject: urgent inquiry. Opened body. Mr. Mason Blake. "We have received documents that raise concerns about potential misrepresentation involving housing grants. We are opening a formal investigation into grant disbursement records associated with Chloe Blake Consulting." Attached 2 forms. One was a request for an affidavit. The other, a PDF titled Initial Timeline of Concern. I let out a long breath. Not satisfaction, just the beginning of breath after being underwater too long. The next email was colder. From corporate.sponsorship, greenpath.org, subject: remove our branding immediately. Body. "Our legal team has reviewed the attached media package. Your organization is not authorized to use our logo. We are contacting Ms. Chloe Blake directly." I closed the window, then another, and another. A news blogger. Local. I remembered him vaguely from a town hall meeting last year. Subject story development. Would you be willing to speak body? Mr. Blake, we're running a piece about local misuse of public grant funds. Your documents are circulating. People want context. You have the receipts. Would you care to comment? Sincerely, Darren Oakley. Fairwatch NJ comment. Just one word, but it cracked open something. I'd always been the invisible thread. Useful silent, pulled tight but never noticed. This time I had printed proof. A file trail, a voice message, the kind of weight that made chairs tip over. Then there was a knock. Noah. He stepped in without waiting to be invited. His expression was the same one he wore when we were kids and the adults argued in the next room. They're panicking, he said. Who Vivian called me screaming at 6 a.m. Chloe's lawyer cousin is trying to draft a statement. Sponsors are distancing. People are talking, Mason. It's moving. I nodded. He tossed a folded piece of paper onto the table. Your story's online. Darren ran it fast. The headline hit like cold water. Local man fights back against years of exploitation, the helper. No more. Noah looked at me. You okay? I didn't answer right away. I wasn't angry. I wasn't shaking. I was calm. Maybe that was new. They're not going to let this go quietly, he warned. I'm not asking them to, I said. But I'll speak once. Just once. Not for attention. For the record. He exhaled through his nose. God, you're more dangerous than I thought. That night I sat in front of a ring light borrowed from Allison. Darren Oakley set up his mic, his expression unusually respectful. I didn't rehearse. I didn't prepare sound bites. I just told the truth. Slowly. Clearly. The clip was 38 minutes long. It hit the local network the next morning. Shared, reposted, commented on. I thought I'd feel exposed. Instead, I felt visible. Then came the teaser for next week's follow-up. Just 10 seconds. B-roll of Chloe laughing at a conference. Then a subtitle quote. He was never part of the plan. I was invisible. Until I became undeniable. The studio was smaller than I'd imagined. Just a matte black wall, 2 armchairs, and a camera blinking red. But the view, count 17,000 and climbing, made the room feel enormous. The interviewer, a woman named Camilla Hart, leaned in gently. She wasn't here for theatrics. Just truth. I respected that. We're live in 5, someone said. My hand rested on the folder in my lap. Inside screen grabs, PDFs, scanned receipts, emails, time-stamped transactions, and Chloe's voice. Not edited, not exaggerated, just all of it. Camilla gave a small nod. We appreciate your courage, Mr. Blake. Courage. I didn't feel brave, just tired of being quiet. The countdown ended. We're here today with Mason Blake. Camilla began, whose story of financial and emotional exploitation has begun to resonate widely. Mr. Blake, thank you for being here. I appreciate the space, I replied. My voice was even, measured. She wasted no time. Let's start with the grants. I opened the folder. Camera zoomed in. These are application forms filed in my name, I said. Approved under my identity. I never saw a dollar. I never signed anything knowingly. But the bank records I held up the screen show Chloe's company routing number tied to each disbursement. Camilla let it hang there. Next page, Chloe's 2019 Instagram story. Biggest thanks to my brother M. Blake for helping this dream take off. It wasn't a thank you, I said. It was a liability shift. I was the shield behind the success. The chat was exploding. Live comments pouring in. He has the receipts. This is messed up. Why is this the first we're hearing of this? Camilla's next question was gentle, but sharp. Why now? I looked into the lens. Because the people who hurt you will never stop. Unless you do. The screen split for a moment. On one side, my face. On the other, Chloe's live rebuttal post. This is a setup. He forged those docs. This is slander and I will sue. Then a second post. Less rage, more desperation. Don't believe everything you see. Families are complicated. The comments didn't favor her this time. So where's your proof? He has documents. You have hashtags. I used to admire Chloe. Not anymore. Then like lightning, Noah's post landed. A 6-second clip Chloe at a 2021 seminar smiling on stage. None of this would have been possible without my brother Mason. He gave everything. Literally. No edits. No spin. Camilla turned to me. Final thoughts, I paused. I didn't come to destroy anyone, I said slowly. I just stopped agreeing to be destroyed. There was no applause. Just silence. That kind of charged silence you could feel in your lungs. Camilla nodded once. The live stream ended. 15 minutes later, Chloe deleted her account. When people lie, they borrow time. But debt always comes due. Chloe's office lights were off by noon. Not just for lunch, not the kind of off that meant someone was coming back. They were the kind of off that signaled the end. Blinds shut. Chairs stacked. A bouquet of wilting roses still clinging to their cellophane. Her company's website redirected to a generic under-maintenance banner. The sponsor logos had vanished overnight. Back at my house, I was installing cabinet hinges when the first email came in. I wiped drywall dust from the screen. Subject: sponsorship terminated from the top sponsor, the same one Chloe used to brag about like a trophy husband. We are withdrawing all association with Ms. Chloe Blake and her ventures. We are also reviewing legal grounds for recovering previously disbursed funds. Then another. Subject: grant audit notification. We are opening formal proceedings. If Ms. Blake cannot produce original project documentation within 7 days, legal action will follow. I exhaled. Didn't smile. Just exhaled. That evening, I scrolled through threads quietly blowing up on Reddit and Twitter. Hashtags like Hunchhack Blake fraud and I help her no more trended locally. Screenshots circulated. My PDF. Chloe's deleted posts. The 6-second clip of her thanking me. No one could unsee it now. Vivian posted nothing. Until she did. A single Instagram story, a table with untouched wine glasses, and the caption, "Family is the real bankruptcy." A few minutes later, the story vanished. I heard from Noah, then from 2 aunts I hadn't spoken to in years. The messages weren't sympathetic. They were curious. You pressing charges? You really taking them to court? Can you sue for all those years? My reply was simple. No. They're doing a great job burying themselves. There's a strange kind of freedom when you no longer want revenge. Just truth. Vivian tried to hold a family meeting. I know because one of my cousins sent a photo, a living room with 3 empty chairs. She sat alone, phone in hand, a tray of sandwiches untouched beside her. The silence from those who used to laugh the loudest, deafening. Late one night, while I was installing a light fixture in the entryway, I heard a knock. Slow, hesitant, not urgent, just inevitable. I opened the door. Vivian stood there, skin-pale hair slightly disheveled, as if the past week had aged her a decade. "You're making a spectacle," she said quietly. "You could have just spoken to us privately." I said nothing. Her lips trembled. "Is this what you wanted, Ruin? Are you satisfied now?" I looked at her, truly looked beyond the matriarch mask, beyond the manipulation, to the hollow behind her eyes. "Not yet," I said, my voice low. "But at least I've lived honestly. They broke me to build Chloe. Now I build without shame." The paint had dried. Sunlight poured through the new windows like an invitation. The floors didn't creak anymore. The air didn't smell like mold, but of cedar and lemon oil. I stood in the doorway alone for a moment longer, listening to nothing. Not silence as absence, but silence as presence. A stillness I had earned. Then came the knock. Noah arrived first, holding a small square box wrapped in deep green paper. He wore a crooked grin that tried hard not to look proud. "For the man," he said, handing me the box, "who rebuilt silence into power." Inside was a vintage door knocker, brass-shaped like an open hand. I didn't ask how he found it. I just nodded and fixed it to the front door. More people trickled in. Not a crowd, just the ones who had shown up when it wasn't easy. A few cousins. Allison. Noah stayed near the kitchen, half host, half buffer, letting people absorb the space without awkwardness. The dining table, hand sanded and stained over 4 weekends, held a modest spread. No champagne towers, just fresh bread soup and a pitcher of lemon water. A few heads turned upward at the old family chandelier I'd restored myself. Allison drifted toward the corner where my grandfather's piano sat beneath a clean window. "You kept it?" she asked softly. I nodded. "Every key still works, even the cracked ones." She touched the lid, then let her fingers rest on the ivory. No music, just memory. Someone laughed from the hallway. Someone else called my name. And for a moment I stepped back in time, an echo of myself as a boy at a family party pressed against a wall, while others danced and toasted. I remembered Vivian's hand pushing me toward the back door, whispering, "Don't get in the way." But now I stood in that very spot, upright, unbothered. Nothing in me tensed anymore. I belonged in this room. As the sun dipped below the window line, I picked up a photo frame from the mantel. The picture inside was simple: a half-painted wall, a hammer mid-swing, my shadow in the corner. I took a marker and wrote across the glass, "You don't need their stage to own your story." Allison glanced at it, said nothing, but smiled. The evening wound down gently. No one overstayed. They hugged me, patted backs, whispered thanks or nothing at all. Some things didn't need language. When the door finally closed and the night wrapped around the house like a soft blanket, I sank into the armchair by the window. The one piece I'd kept from my old apartment. It squeaked when I leaned back, and I let it. The room held no noise, no bitterness, just breath. My phone buzzed once. New message, unknown number. "I have more stories like yours. You should help tell them." They called me the helper. I still am. Just not theirs. The morning light arrived softly, brushing across the porch with a gentleness I hadn't felt in years. My coffee steamed quietly in my hands, untouched for a while. It wasn't that I needed the caffeine, it was the ritual, the silence, the stillness after a storm. I scrolled through my inbox. There it was. Subject: final resolution, community housing grant. The first line read like an apology written with gritted teeth. "Following our investigation, we acknowledge administrative failures and misrepresentation by third-party applicants. We extend a formal apology to Mr. Mason Blake." No fanfare, no admission of how deep the manipulation had gone, just enough words to call it done. Attached a PDF stamped with official seals. Another email followed. From a legal firm in Midtown. "On behalf of Ms. Chloe Blake, we offer this written apology for any distress or miscommunication caused during the course of past events. This statement is not an admission of guilt." I read it twice, then deleted it. Noah called an hour later. "You did it, man." I sipped my coffee before answering. "I didn't win. I just stopped losing." He laughed quietly on the other end. Not mocking, just knowing. "Still," he said, "that house. That story. You didn't just stop losing. You rewrote the rules." I didn't reply. But I looked around me. The porch boards didn't creak anymore. The paint was solid, weatherproofed. The wind didn't get in unless I let it. Around noon, a delivery van pulled up. The man left a box of flowers on the step. No card. Just white orchids in a dark blue vase. Vivian's signature move. I left them where they were. By afternoon, I'd moved to the living room. The air smelled like lemon wood polish and faint candle smoke. The armchair creaked under my weight as I settled in. I opened a drawer in the hallway table and pulled out an envelope. Faded brown, frayed edges, my name written in my grandfather's hand. Inside was the photo. I hadn't looked at it in years. A younger version of me, maybe 10, stood beside the old house when it was just bones and bricks. I was grinning, covered in mud, holding a rusted nail like it was gold. He'd taken the photo the day I helped him haul lumber, the day I said, "One day I'll fix this place." I had no idea it would take this long. I framed it, hung it by the front door right above eye level. Then beneath the frame, I took a pen and wrote on the wall, "Truth doesn't shout. It survives." Betrayed, silenced, and used for years, Mason rebuilt not just a home, but his voice. The people who once dismissed him now watched as their empire of lies crumbled under the quiet weight of proof. Justice didn't come with noise or applause. It arrived like dawn, slow, steady, and impossible to stop. When injustice is met with unwavering courage, the final verdict can echo through a lifetime. Sometimes standing up once means you never have to kneel again. If this story moved you, share and subscribe to help others find it. Comment 1 if you felt seen. Comment 2 if you're still processing the journey.